Okay, in this one, I want to just show a quick demonstration of the difference between posts and pages, which I previously mentioned. You can add a new post or you can add a new page. So, pardon me, pages are typically content that is going to stay persistent. Pages like about All One Era, the vision, accolades, the book, these are all pages. And then the posts are things more like blogging. And so those are things that have a shelf life, they're timely, they're topics du jour. And so those all end up in a different section entirely. So the difference between those is that's the only difference between how they work. And the reason that they're broken into two different options is because of how they're categorized. So when you add a new page, it becomes something permanent that you can add to the menu. How to add things to the menu is covered in the next video. As far as things that are posted, this is where I suggested maybe you want to come up with a name for the blog. So, for example, calling it something like All One Era blog wouldn't be good because it's not really. If you just call it a blog, you end up in a situation where everything kind of has to be blogging. You could call it news and updates, but then you're always going to be thinking in terms of news and updates. The reason I mention that is because the posting is your chance to add uh, timely or unique or information that you want to add but doesn't necessarily fit with one of the other categories under the main menu. Now, one of the websites that I had worked on previously, for example, we wanted to be able to post content, but we didn't want to take over obviously the pages for everything. And so it was a Belize resort, and so we called it Under the Belizean Sun. That was the name of the blog. We never referred to it as blog, we referred to it as Under the Belizean Sun. And so coming up with sort of a name like that might be advantageous, and in fact is something I'd really strongly recommend. Now, doing that and posting is not something that has been regularly done, so there is no link to it currently on the menu. I would recommend that we get at least a couple of bits of content posted in that sense and a name for it before we actually add it to the menu, and possibly give it some shine by putting a large format, attractive call to action graphic in place to draw people to that. So when you do a post, however, there's a couple of things to take into account. So number one, just like a page, whatever you put here as the title is going to end up becoming what's called the slug, which you'll see in a moment. And the slug is basically it's going to make it so that the address is alloneera.com/whatever -u-put-here. And so it's important to consider that when you're coming up with a title. So if you just do the title update, that's not going to be very meaningful. Or if you do the update called, an update like news, it's just not very helpful or search engine friendly. So as many descriptive words as you can put in a title, within reason, of course, do please try to do that. The second thing is that it's important when you're doing pages, but it's even more important when you're doing posts that you set an appropriate featured image, because posts on blogs tend to be more widely shared than pages on websites that have blogs. So having that featured image set to something appropriate is very much recommended. Other than that, everything else about adding content is exactly the same. You can click the button here to add paragraphs and break things down with headings and include forms or whatever it is that you want to do. But that's all there is to it as far as posting goes. And hopefully that gives some color as to what the difference is between a post and a page.